I need to tell you something. Those 6 words. Han Ji-tae heard them again in his head as he stood frozen on the walking path in Schiller Park, Columbus, Ohio. Autumn leaves crunched under shoes he couldn't feel anymore. His chest locked up, his lungs forgot how to work. Because 30 feet away, sitting on a bench near the playground, was Danielle Brooks. And next to her, a little boy. The child couldn't be more than 3 years old, maybe younger. Dark curls, her smile, her exact smile. Ji-tae's heart slammed against his ribs. The boy looked up at Danielle, said something Ji-tae couldn't hear, and she laughed. That same laugh, the one that used to fill his office in Memphis during late nights when spreadsheets blurred into something that felt like intimacy. He did the math instantly. 3 years since she left Memphis. 9 months before that. His hands went cold. The child turned his head, and Ji-tae saw the eyes. Round, curious, observant. Her eyes. Everything in him screamed to walk away, turn around, pretend he hadn't seen this, hadn't seen him. But his feet moved forward. Danielle noticed him before he got close. Her whole body stiffened. Not fear, something worse. Recognition. She stood quickly, positioning herself between Ji-tae and the boy.
Han.
Danielle.
He couldn't breathe right, couldn't think. I didn't know you were in Ohio. I didn't know you came here. She crossed her arms, defensive, guarded. The boy tugged her sleeve. Mama, who's that? Mama. Ji-tae's throat closed. Welcome to K-Stories by Emma. Before we continue, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any story. He looked at the child, really looked. 3 years old, maybe 3.5. The timeline fit perfectly. This is... Danielle hesitated. This is Micah. Micah. Ji-tae knelt down slowly, eye level with the boy. His son, maybe. Probably. Hi, Micah. The child stepped closer to Danielle's leg, shy, safe. Viewers, have you ever run into someone from your past you never wanted to see again when you least expected it? Drop a comment and let me know. Ji-tae stood back up. His voice came out rougher than he wanted. How old is he? Danielle's jaw tightened. 3. 3. Silence stretched between them, heavy, thick. He needed to ask, had to ask. Danielle, is he? No. The word hit him like a fist. No? Ji-tae repeated. He's not yours. Her voice didn't shake, didn't waver, but her eyes told a different story. Grief lived there. Pain lived there. Truth lived there. I'm married now. Micah's father is someone else. Married. Someone else. Ji-tae nodded slowly. Professional. Controlled. Even though everything inside him was falling apart. I see. But he didn't see, because the boy had her smile, her eyes, her exact mannerisms, and the timing. The timing was perfect. Danielle picked Micah up, balanced him on her hip. We have to go. Of course. She walked past him without another word. Micah looked back over her shoulder, curious about the tall man who had knelt down to say hello. Ji-tae watched them leave. He stood there long after they disappeared down the path, watching nothing, breathing shallow. Is he mine? The question burned. But Danielle had said no, and in his old life, the one built on control and power and fear, he would have demanded proof, would have followed her, would have made her tell him the truth. But he didn't, because maybe he'd lost the right to ask. Still, 3 years old, her eyes, her smile, and the way Danielle's voice had cracked just slightly when she said, "He's not yours." She was lying. Memphis, Tennessee. Danielle Brooks walked into Han Ji-tae's office at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Most of the logistics floor had cleared out hours ago, but she stayed, always stayed. She carried a tablet and a cup of coffee she'd made herself, not for him, for her. Jite noticed that immediately. Most people brought him coffee, offered things, tried to earn favor. Danielle didn't. She set the tablet on his desk. The shipping manifest from Busan doesn't match the inventory report. Someone's skimming. Jite looked up from his laptop. How much? 42 containers over 6 months. Small enough to miss, large enough to matter. She didn't flinch when he stared at her, didn't look away, didn't shuffle her feet or apologize for interrupting. Most employees feared him, not because he yelled. He never yelled. But because silence could be sharper than any threat. Danielle met his silence with her own. "Send me the report," he said finally. She nodded, turned to leave. "Danielle." She stopped, looked back. "Why are you still here?" "Same reason you are," she shrugged. "I don't like unfinished work." Then she left. Jite watched her go. She didn't ask for approval, didn't seek validation, didn't try to impress him. And that was dangerous, because power feeds on fear, and Danielle Brooks didn't offer any. Weeks passed. Late nights became routine, strategy sessions that lasted until midnight, spreadsheets and shipping routes and silent dinners from the Thai place down the street. She laughed at his dry humor, challenged his assumptions, pushed back when he was wrong. No one pushed back. Except her. One night, Jite reached for a file at the same moment she did. Their hands touched. She pulled back first, not quickly, not nervously, just aware. "Sorry," she said. He didn't respond, but something shifted. A month later, they worked through a crisis involving a delayed shipment and an angry client. Danielle stayed until 2 a.m., running numbers, fixing the problem. When it was over, Jite poured her a drink from the bottle he kept in his desk, expensive whiskey most people couldn't pronounce. She took it, sipped, didn't comment on the price. "You don't have to prove anything," he said quietly. Danielle looked at him. "Neither do you." That was the night everything changed. He walked her to her car, stood too close, said things he shouldn't have said. She didn't run. She kissed him first. And Jite, a man built on control and calculated decisions, let himself fall into something he couldn't control. 3 months later, Danielle sat across from him in that same office. Her hands were folded in her lap, steady, calm, but her eyes held something new. Fear. "We need to talk about something important," she said. Jite set down his pen. "What is it?" She took a breath, held it, released it slowly. "I'm pregnant." The room went silent. Not the comfortable silence they used to share. A different kind. The kind that ends things. Jite stared at her, processing, calculating, panicking. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "How long?" 8 weeks. 8 weeks. He leaned back in his chair. His mind raced through options, outcomes, consequences. His family, the business, the expectations. A child outside of marriage, outside of structure, outside of control. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Danielle's jaw tightened. "I'm keeping it." And just like that, Jite realized he was about to lose everything. Jite's hands shook. Not visibly, not enough for Danielle to see, but he felt it, the tremor in his fingers as he pressed them flat against his desk. "I'm keeping it," she'd said. Those 3 words sat between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. He needed to say something, needed to respond, but his throat had closed. His chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped steel cables around his ribs and yanked. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not with her. "Jite?" Danielle's voice cut through the ringing in his ears. He looked up, forced his face into something neutral, controlled. "Does anyone else know?" "No, just you." He nodded slowly, buying time, thinking. His mother's voice echoed in his head. sharp, disapproving. Marriage is not about love, Jite. It's about legacy, about family, about doing what's expected. She'd said that to him at his cousin's wedding 2 months ago, right after introducing him to the daughter of a business associate from Seoul, a woman with the right background, the right education, the right everything. A child out of wedlock with an employee? His mother would never forgive him. Worse, his father wouldn't either. This complicates things, Jite said finally. Danielle's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. Complicates things? She repeated. Yes. How? Jite stood, walked to the window, looked out at the Memphis skyline, anything to avoid looking at her. My family has expectations, standards. A child born outside of marriage. Standards? Danielle's voice was quiet. Too quiet. Is that what you're calling this? It's not personal. It's a baby, Jite. It's as personal as it gets. He turned to face her. I'm not ready to be a father. And I wasn't planning to be a mother at 27, but here we are. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating.
Jite's jaw clenched. There are options, medical options. It would be practical. Practical? Danielle stood, her chair scraped against the floor. You want me to end this pregnancy because it's practical? I'm thinking about your future, our futures. No, she shook her head. You're thinking about yours. Jite's chest tightened again. Panic dressed itself as anger. I can't do this, he said. Not now, not like this. Then don't. Danielle picked up her bag, slung it over her shoulder. I told you because you had a right to know, but I'm not asking for your permission or your money or anything else. She walked toward the door. Danielle, I'll turn in my resignation tomorrow. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She stopped at the door, looked back at him one last time. I thought you were different, she said softly. I thought the man who stayed late and listened and actually saw me was real. Her voice cracked just slightly. But you're just like everyone else who's ever had power over me. The second it became inconvenient, I stopped mattering. Jite wanted to say something, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but the words wouldn't come, because maybe she wasn't wrong. Danielle left. The door clicked shut behind her. Jite stood there, alone, breathing shallow. He told himself he'd made the logical choice, the smart choice. Protection. For both of them. But protection for whom? 2 weeks later, Danielle's position was quietly eliminated, her access badge deactivated, her desk cleared. Clean, professional, legal, and deeply, profoundly cruel. She didn't fight it, didn't make a scene. She just disappeared. And Jite convinced himself that was better, that walking away was mercy, that she'd be fine, that he'd be fine. But late at night, when the office was empty and the city lights blurred together, he thought about her words. I thought you were different. And he wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Danielle's alarm went off at 4:47 a.m. Not 5 o'clock, not 4:45, 4:47. Because those 13 extra minutes meant she could shower, dress, and prep Micah's bottles before her friend Aaliyah Reed arrived to babysit at 5:30. The apartment was small, a one-bedroom in a building where the heat worked intermittently and the hallway smelled like cigarettes and fried food. Rent was $680 a month. Utilities, another $120. Groceries, diapers, formula, another $300 if she stretched every dollar until it screamed. She worked 3 jobs. Freelance data analysis for a tech startup, $18 an hour, no benefits. Weekend shifts at a call center, $14 an hour, also no benefits. And Wednesday nights doing bookkeeping for a small accounting firm, $20 an hour, cash. 46 hours a week, sometimes 50. She was always tired.
The kind of tired that lived in your bones, that made your eyes burn and your shoulders ache and your brain feel like static. But she didn't complain. Complaining didn't pay the electric bill. Micah was born in February, 3 weeks early, 5 pounds, 4 ounces. The hospital bill was $11,000. Danielle had insurance through the tech startup, barely. It covered $6,200. That left $4,800. She paid $150 a month, every month, on time. It would take her 32 months to clear the debt, almost 3 years. But Micah was worth it. Every sleepless night, every skipped meal, every time she chose between fixing her car and buying him new clothes because he'd outgrown the old ones in 3 months. He was worth it. At 3:12 a.m. on a Thursday in May, Micah woke up screaming. Not his normal cry, not hungry or wet or lonely. This was different. Danielle bolted out of bed, scooped him up. His skin felt like fire. His breathing came in short, desperate gasps, wheezing. She grabbed her phone, called Aaliyah. "I need you, now." Aaliyah arrived in 12 minutes, hair wrapped, eyes barely open. "Go," she said. "I'll lock up." Danielle drove to Nationwide Children's Hospital with Micah strapped in the back seat. She kept glancing in the rearview mirror, watching his chest rise and fall. Too fast, too shallow. The ER smelled like disinfectant and fear. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A TV in the corner played the news with no sound. Micah's oxygen levels were at 89%. Normal was 95 or higher. They put him on a nebulizer, gave him steroids, monitored him for 4 hours. Respiratory syncytial virus, RSV. Common in babies, usually manageable, but Micah's lungs were small, underdeveloped from being born early. He stayed overnight. Danielle slept in a chair next to his crib. Didn't sleep, really, just closed her eyes and listened to the machines beep. The second hospital bill was $3,400. Insurance covered $1,800. That left $1,600. She negotiated it down to $1,200, paid $50 a month. 24 months. 2 more years. She went back to work 3 days later. Had to. Couldn't afford not to. Aaliyah watched Micah during the day. Refused to take more than $40 a week. "You're family," Aaliyah said. "Family doesn't charge family." But Danielle still slipped an extra $20 into her purse when she wasn't looking. Because pride only went so far when your baby needed someone to keep him alive while you worked. Months passed. Micah learned to crawl, then walk, then say, "Mama." That first word made everything worth it. Every unpaid bill, every double shift, every night she cried in the shower because she was so tired she couldn't see straight. He smiled at her with her own smile, looked at her with her own eyes. And she thought about Jite. Wondered if he ever thought about her. Wondered if he knew what he'd thrown away. But mostly, she didn't think about him at all, because thinking about him didn't pay the rent, didn't feed her son, didn't keep the lights on. Single motherhood wasn't cinematic. It was brutal. It was beautiful. It was waking up at 4:47 a.m. every single day and choosing to keep going. And then one afternoon, while Jite sat in a business meeting in Memphis, his phone buzzed. A text from his cousin in Tennessee. "Family dinner this Sunday. Mom wants everyone there. No excuses." Jite stared at the message, and for the first time in months, he thought about what he'd lost. Jite's black Mercedes took the turn on Poplar Avenue at 11:43 p.m. The impact came from the passenger side. A delivery truck, no headlights, running a red light at 40 miles per hour. Metal screamed, glass shattered. The airbag deployed with a sound like a gunshot. Jite's head slammed against the driver's side window. Everything went white, then black. He woke up in Regional 1 hospital 3 hours later. His ribs felt like someone had taken a hammer to them. His left arm throbbed. His vision blurred at the edges. A doctor stood next to the bed. Older, gray hair, tired eyes. "Mr. Hahn, you're awake. Good." Jite tried to sit up. Pain shot through his abdomen. Don't move, the doctor said. You have 3 fractured ribs, internal bruising, mild concussion. The other driver fled the scene. Police are investigating. Jite closed his eyes, breathed shallow, waited for the pain to settle. Fled the scene, not an accident. Park Sang-ho arrived 20 minutes later, his second in command, the only person Jite trusted completely. Cho Min-suk, Sang-ho said quietly. He's been moving on your territory for months. This wasn't random. Cho Min-suk, a rival operator out of Nashville. Ambitious, reckless, hungry. Jite had underestimated him. Handle it, Jite said. Already started. Sang-ho left. Jite spent 4 days in the hospital. Tests, scans, medications that made him feel disconnected from his own body. On the 3rd day, a different doctor came in. Younger, female, holding a tablet. Mr. Han, we need to discuss your CT results. Jite looked at her, waited. The internal injuries affected your pelvic region, specifically testicular trauma from the seatbelt impact. She paused. We've run additional tests. The damage is significant, permanent. Jite's chest tightened. What does that mean? The doctor's expression didn't change. Clinical, professional. It means biological fatherhood is no longer possible. The words hung in the air. No longer possible. Jite stared at the ceiling. White tiles, fluorescent lights, everything sterile and cold. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sorry. She left. The room went quiet. Jite didn't cry, didn't react, didn't move. He just lay there, breathing, thinking about Danielle, about the choice he'd made, the child she'd wanted to keep, the child he'd told her to get rid of. I'm not ready to be a father. That's what he'd said, and now he never would be. Karma didn't shout. It diagnosed. 3 weeks later, Jite attended a family dinner in Tennessee, his mother's house, large, traditional, filled with relatives he saw twice a year and tolerated out of obligation. His cousin Junho sat across from him, holding his newborn daughter. 6 weeks old, tiny, perfect. Jite's mother leaned over, smiled at the baby. Her face glowed. So beautiful, she whispered. Junho, you're blessed. Juno grinned. She's my whole world. Jite's father clapped Junho on the shoulder. This is what family is about. Legacy, continuing the name. He looked at Jite. When will you settle down? Give us grandchildren. Everyone at the table turned to look at him, waiting, expecting. Jite picked up his glass of water, took a sip. Soon, he lied. But inside, something fractured. Because he'd had a chance. One chance, and he'd thrown it away. Now it was gone. Forever. Months later, Jite traveled to Ohio for a business acquisition meeting. Routine, simple, nothing important. He walked through Schiller Park afterward, alone, avoiding calls. And that's when he saw her, Danielle, and the child who might have been his. Jite stood in his mother's kitchen, holding a glass of wine he wasn't drinking. The house smelled like garlic and sesame oil, galbi sizzling on the grill, kimchi fermenting in ceramic jars lined up on the counter. His mother moved through the space like she owned it, because she did. Jite, bring the banchan to the table, she called over her shoulder. He picked up the tray, small dishes, pickled radish, seasoned spinach, dried anchovies. The dining room was loud. 15 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, their children. Junho sat at the head of the table with his wife, Minji. She cradled their daughter against her chest. The baby made small noises, soft, content. His mother leaned over, touched the baby's cheek. Look at those eyes, she whispered. She has your father's eyes, Junho.
Minji smiled, proud, exhausted, happy. Jite set the tray down, took his seat at the far end of the table. His father raised his glass. To family, to legacy, to the next generation. Everyone lifted their glasses. Jite lifted his, drank, tasted nothing. Across the table, Junho's daughter yawned, her tiny fist curled against Minji's shirt. Jite watched. He thought about Danielle, about the conversation in his office, the way her voice had cracked when she said, "I thought you were different," about the child she'd carried alone, the child who would be, what, a year old now? Maybe older? He didn't know, didn't deserve to know. Jite. His mother's voice cut through his thoughts. He looked up. "When are you going to settle down?" she asked, not gently, not as a suggestion, as an expectation. "I'm focused on work right now." "Work isn't everything. You need a family, children, someone to carry the Han name forward." Junho grinned. "No pressure, cousin." Everyone laughed. Jite forced a smile. "I'll think about it." But he wouldn't, because thinking about it meant thinking about what he'd lost, what he'd thrown away, what he could never get back. After dinner, he stood outside on the porch, alone. The Tennessee air was cool. Crickets chirped in the distance. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Through the window, he could see Junho lifting his daughter into the air. The baby giggled, reached for his face. Junho kissed her forehead. Pure joy. Uncomplicated. Jite's chest ached. Not physically, the ribs had healed. This was something else, something deeper. He pulled out his phone, stared at the blank screen. No messages, no missed calls, no one waiting for him. He thought about calling Danielle, but what would he say? "I'm sorry?" Too late. "I made a mistake." Irrelevant. "I wish I could go back." Impossible. So he said nothing, put the phone away, went back inside, smiled when expected, laughed when appropriate, played the role of the successful son. But inside, he felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything important and left only the shell. Regret wasn't loud. It didn't scream or demand attention. It just sat there, quiet, constant, a weight he'd carry for the rest of his life. 2 months later, Jite received an email from a business partner in Ohio. Logistics acquisition. Routine meeting, Columbus. He booked the flight without thinking twice. Attended the meeting, signed the papers, closed the deal. Afterward, he had 3 hours before his return flight. He walked. No destination, no plan, just walking. That's how he ended up in Schiller Park. That's how he saw her. Danielle. Sitting on a bench, with a little boy beside her. And everything Jite thought he'd buried came rushing back. The park smelled like fresh-cut grass and autumn leaves beginning to decay. Jite stopped. 30 feet away, maybe less. Danielle sat on a wooden bench near the playground. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun. And next to her, the boy. Jite's breath caught. He couldn't have been more than 3. Small, thin arms, dark curls that caught the afternoon sunlight. The boy said something. Jite couldn't hear what. Danielle laughed, that same laugh, the one that used to fill his office during late nights when everything felt possible. The sound hit him like a fist to the chest. He should leave, turn around, walk away. But his feet moved forward. Each step felt heavier than the last. Danielle noticed him when he was 10 feet away. Her whole body went rigid. Not scared, not angry, guarded. She stood quickly, positioned herself between Jite and the boy. "Han." Her voice was flat, careful, like she was speaking to a stranger. Maybe she was. "Danielle." His throat felt tight. "I didn't know you were in Ohio." "I didn't know you came here." Silence. The boy tugged her sleeve. "Mama? Who's that?" Jite's heart slammed against his ribs. Mama. He looked at the child, really looked. Round face, her cheekbones, her exact expression when she was thinking. But the eyes were different.
dark, observant, the way they studied Jite with quiet curiosity. The boy couldn't have been more than 30 pounds. "This is Micah," Danielle said. "Micah." Jite knelt down, slow, non-threatening, eye level with the boy. "Hi, Micah." The child stepped closer to Danielle's leg, shy, safe. Up close, Jite could see everything. The curve of Micah's jaw, the way his nose wrinkled when he was uncertain, the small scar above his left eyebrow. He smelled like baby shampoo and something sweet, juice maybe. Jite's hands trembled. He stood back up, looked at Danielle. "How old is he?" Her jaw tightened. 3. 3. The math was instant, automatic. 3 years since she left Memphis. 9 months before that. The timeline fit perfectly. Jite's chest felt like someone had wrapped steel wire around it and pulled tight. "Danielle," his voice came out rougher than he wanted. "Is he?" "No." The word was sharp, final. Jite stared at her, searching her face for cracks, for hesitation. But Danielle didn't flinch. "No," he repeated. "He's not yours." The air between them felt heavy, thick. Jite could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, could taste copper on his tongue from biting the inside of his cheek. "You're sure?" "Yes. Because the timing. I'm married now. Micah's father is someone else." Married. Someone else. Jite nodded slowly, like he believed her. But her eyes told a different story. They always had. Grief lived there. Pain lived there. Truth lived there. She was lying. He knew it. She knew he knew it. But she held his gaze anyway, daring him to challenge her. In his old life, the one built on control and power and always getting what he wanted, he would have demanded proof, would have followed her home, would have hired someone to investigate, would have made her tell him the truth. But he didn't, because maybe he'd lost the right to ask. "I see," Jite said quietly. Danielle picked Micah up, balanced him on her hip. The boy's small hand rested against her shoulder. "We have to go." "Of course." She walked past him, close enough that Jite could smell her perfume, something floral, faint, the same one she used to wear in Memphis. Micah looked back over her shoulder, curious about the tall man who had knelt down to say hello. Their eyes met, and for just a second, one brief, aching second, Jite saw something, a flicker of recognition, a mirror. Then Danielle turned a corner, disappeared behind a row of trees. Jite stood there, alone, breathing shallow. The park was quiet now, just the sound of wind through leaves, distant traffic, a dog barking somewhere far away. He looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. Is he mine? The question burned. But Danielle had said no, and he had walked away. Again. Jite pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, found Park Seung-ho's number, stared at it, then put the phone away. No, not this time. This time he would wait. This time he would let her decide. But late that night, alone in his hotel room, Jite made a different call. "Seung-ho, I need you to find someone." Park Seung-ho called back 3 days later. "Found her," he said. "Danielle Brooks, lives on West Broad Street, apartment 3C. Jite sat in his Memphis office, phone pressed to his ear, listening. "She works 3 jobs, freelance data analysis, weekend call center shifts, bookkeeping on Wednesday nights." 3 jobs? Yes. Jite's jaw tightened. "Keep going." Sang-ho rustled papers on the other end. "Rent is $680 a month. She's 2 months behind. Landlord's threatening eviction." $680. Jite spent more than that on a single dinner. What else? Hospital debt, Nationwide Children's Hospital. 2 separate bills. Total outstanding, $6,000. She's on a payment plan, $200 a month, but she missed last month's payment. Jite closed his eyes, breathed slow. The child? Micah Brooks, born February 14th, 3 years old, had respiratory complications as an infant, RSV, required overnight hospital stay. February 14th. Jite did the math again, counted backward. 9 months from February was May of the previous year, when Danielle was still in Memphis, when they were still... Is there a husband? Jite asked. Silence. Then Sang-ho said, no marriage certificate on file, no joint bank accounts, she's listed as single on all documents. No husband. She'd lied. Jite leaned back in his chair, stared at the ceiling. Anything else? Childcare. She pays a woman named Aaliyah Reed $40 a week, friend from college. They share the apartment building. $40 a week for full-time childcare. That wasn't even minimum wage. Send me everything, Jite said. What are you going to do? Jite hung up. He sat there for a long time, thinking, calculating, planning. Then he made a call, not to Danielle, to her landlord. The conversation lasted 4 minutes. The tenant in 3C, Danielle Brooks, what does she owe? The landlord hesitated. Who's asking? Someone willing to pay. How much? $1,360, 2 months plus late fees. I'll wire $2,000. Covers this month too. Don't tell her who paid. I don't understand. You don't need to. Just mark her account current. Jite hung up. Next, he called Nationwide Children's Hospital. Billing department. I'm calling about an account. Danielle Brooks. Patient name Micah Brooks. Are you authorized to discuss this account? I'm paying it off. How much is outstanding? The woman paused, typed. Total balance is $6,047. I'll pay $7,000. The extra goes toward any future visits. Don't contact her, just close the account. Sir, we need proper authorization. I'm wiring the money today. Make it happen. He hung up again. One more call. This time to a local community organization in Columbus, one that provided childcare assistance. I'd like to make a donation, specifically for a recipient named Aaliyah Reed, childcare support for a child named Micah Brooks. We can't guarantee specific recipients. Then set up a grant, $500 a month for 12 months. Make it retroactive to this month. That's very generous, but I'll send the paperwork. Just process it. Jite ended the call. Sat in silence. His office was dark now. Evening had crept in without him noticing. He'd just spent $15,000. Didn't feel like enough. Couldn't undo what he'd done. Couldn't give back the years she'd struggled alone. But maybe, just maybe, it could give her room to breathe. He wouldn't attach his name, wouldn't ask for credit, wouldn't demand anything in return. For the first time in his life, Han Ji-tae gave without expecting control. 2 weeks later, Danielle received a notice from her landlord. Account current, no payment required this month. She stared at the paper, then called the hospital. Account closed, balance $0. Her hands shook. Someone had done this. Someone with money, with reach. And Danielle knew exactly who. She grabbed her phone, scrolled through old contacts, found Park Sung-ho's number, and called. Park Sung-ho's phone rang at 9:17 p.m. He answered on the second ring. Hello? This is Danielle Brooks. Her voice was cold, controlled. I know what you did. Sung-ho didn't respond immediately. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to connect me to Han Ji-tae, or I'm going to make this very complicated for both of you. Hold on. Sung-ho walked across the office, knocked on Ji-tae's door, opened it without waiting. Ji-tae looked up from his laptop. It's her, Sung-ho said quietly, held out the phone. Ji-tae's chest tightened. He took the phone. Danielle, why can't you just let us live? Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't hysterical. That made it worse. Jite stood, walked to the window, looked out at the Memphis skyline. I wanted to help. I didn't ask for your help. I know. Then why? Silence. Jite pressed his forehead against the glass, cool, grounding. Because you shouldn't have to struggle alone. I've been struggling alone for 3 years, Jite. Where were you then? The question hit like a knife. You're right, he said quietly. I wasn't there. No, you weren't. Silence again. Jite could hear her breathing on the other end, measured, controlled. I don't want your money, Danielle said. I don't want your guilt payments. I don't want anything from you. I understand. Do you? Yes. Then stop. Stop interfering. Stop trying to fix things you broke 3 years ago. Just stop. Jite closed his eyes. I can't. Why not? Because I was wrong. The words came out rough, raw. Danielle went quiet. Jite kept talking. No script, no plan. Just truth. I was wrong to ask you to end the pregnancy. I was wrong to replace you. I was wrong to let you leave. I was wrong about everything. His voice cracked. And I can't undo any of it. I know that. But I can't just walk away again. You already did, Danielle said. In the park, you walked away. Because you told me to. And now I'm telling you again. Jite opened his eyes, stared at his reflection in the glass. Is he mine? Silence. Long. Heavy. Does it matter? Danielle asked finally. Yes. Why? So you can throw money at the problem? So you can ease your conscience? No, so I can be his father. Danielle laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just pain. You can't buy fatherhood, Jite. You can't wire transfer it. You can't fix it with a check. I know. Then what do you want from me? One meeting, in person. Let me explain. Explain what? Everything. Danielle didn't respond. Jite waited, let the silence stretch. Finally, she spoke. One meeting, public place, daytime. You don't bring anyone, you don't try to manipulate me, you don't make promises you can't keep. Agreed. And if I say no after that, if I tell you to leave us alone, you do it, permanently. Jite's throat tightened. Okay. Schiller Park, Saturday, 2 p.m., the bench near the playground. I'll be there. Don't be late. She hung up. Jite stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to the dial tone. Sung-ho cleared his throat. What did she say? She agreed to meet. That's good. Maybe. Jite handed the phone back, sat down at his desk, stared at nothing. He had one chance, one meeting, one opportunity to explain why he'd destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him, and he had no idea what to say. Saturday came faster than he expected. Jite flew into Columbus Friday night, stayed at a hotel downtown, didn't sleep. At 1:45 p.m., he stood outside Schiller Park, watching, waiting. At 1:58, Danielle appeared. Alone. No Micah. She walked toward the bench, sat down, crossed her arms. Jite approached slowly, sat on the opposite end, left space between them. Thank you for coming, he said. Danielle didn't look at him. You have 30 minutes. Talk. Jite took a breath and told her everything. Jite looked at his hands, then at Danielle. A year after you left, I was in a car accident. Danielle's expression didn't change, but she was listening.
Cho Min Sok, a rival operator. He arranged it. Mechanical failure. I survived. He paused, breathed. But the internal injuries were severe. Damage to my pelvic region. The doctors ran tests. His voice roughened. They told me biological fatherhood would no longer be possible. Permanent damage. Danielle's arms loosened slightly. Not much, but enough. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand. I can't have children. Ever. And that knowledge, his throat closed. It broke something in me. Why are you telling me this? Danielle asked quietly. Because when I saw Micah in the park, I realized what I'd thrown away. Not just you, not just the relationship, but the chance to be a father. He looked directly at her now. You asked me in the park if he was mine, and you said no. But I know the truth, Danielle. The timeline fits. He has your eyes, your smile. And his voice cracked. I need to know. Is Micah my son? Silence. The park was quiet. A few joggers passed. A woman walked a dog in the distance. Danielle stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. Yes. The word hit Jite like lightning. He's yours. Jite's chest collapsed, relief and grief all at once. Why did you lie? Danielle turned to face him. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. Because you gave up the right to know him when you told me to get rid of him. The truth landed hard. Jite nodded. You're right. I protected him alone while you protected your reputation. I know. I worked 3 jobs, paid hospital bills, watched them almost stop breathing in an ER at 3 a.m. by myself. I know. You don't get to waltz back in now and play father because you're suddenly interested. Jite didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He just listened. Danielle wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So what do you want, Jite? I want to be his father, if you'll let me. Under what terms? Your terms. Danielle studied him, searching for manipulation, for control, for the man who'd fired her 3 years ago. But all she saw was brokenness. Okay, she said finally. Here's what's going to happen. Jite leaned forward, listening. No romance. I don't trust you. I may never trust you. This isn't about us. It's about Micah. Understood. Structured visitation. You don't show up unannounced. You don't take him anywhere without my permission. You respect my rules. Agreed. No exposure to your business. Whatever you do in Memphis, I don't care, but it doesn't touch my son. Ever. It won't. And absolute transparency. You lie to me once about anything and you're done. Permanently. Jite met her gaze. I won't lie to you. Danielle crossed her arms again. Prove it. How? Show up. Every week. On time. Be consistent. Don't make promises you can't keep. And don't expect me to make this easy for you. I don't. Good. She stood. Jite stood with her. We start small, Danielle said. 1 hour, supervised, at my apartment. You bring nothing. No gifts, no money, just yourself. When? Next Saturday, 10 a.m. I'll be there. Danielle looked at him, really looked. He doesn't know you. He doesn't know what you did, and I'm not telling him until I'm sure you're serious. I understand. Do you? Because if you disappoint him the way you disappointed me, I will make sure you never see him again. Her voice was steel. Jite nodded. I won't disappoint him. We'll see. Danielle turned to leave, then stopped. Jite? Yes? Why now? Why not 3 years ago when I needed you? He didn't have a good answer, just the truth.
Because I was a coward, and it took losing everything to realize what mattered. Danielle nodded slowly. At least you're honest about that. She walked away. Jite stood there, watching her go. But this time, it felt different. This time, she'd given him a chance. One chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. But when it did, when Jite stood outside Danielle's apartment door at 9:58 a.m., he realized something terrifying. He had no idea how to be a father. Week 1. Jite arrived at 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes early. Danielle opened the door. Micah peeked out from behind her leg. Come in. The apartment was small, clean, lived in. A couch with a blanket draped over the arm, toys scattered near the TV, the faint smell of coffee and cinnamon. Jite knelt down, eye level with Micah. Hi, Micah. Do you remember me? The boy shook his head, shy. That's okay. I'm Jite. I'm a friend of your mom's. Micah stared, then ran back to his toys. Danielle crossed her arms. You have 1 hour. Jite sat on the floor, watched Micah play with blocks, said nothing, just observed. At 11 a.m., he stood, thanked Danielle, left. Week 2. Jite arrived at 9:53 a.m. This time, Micah didn't hide. He looked up when Jite walked in. You came back. I did. Why? Because I wanted to see you. Micah considered this, then handed Jite a toy car. You can play with the blue one. They played cars for an hour. Jite followed Micah's lead, didn't try to take over, didn't correct him, just played. When he left, Micah waved. Week 4. Jite arrived at 9:50 a.m. Micah met him at the door. I made a tower. Want to see? Yes. The tower was 7 blocks high, uneven but standing. That's really good, Jite said. Mama helped. She's good at helping. Micah nodded seriously, then knocked the tower over, laughed. Jite smiled, a real smile. Danielle watched from the kitchen, arms still crossed, but her expression had softened, slightly. Week 8. Micah asked, Do you have a house? I do, in Memphis. Is it big? Yes. Bigger than ours? Jite hesitated. Yes. Do you have toys? No, but if you visited, we could get some. Micah's eyes lit up. Really? Danielle cleared her throat. We'll see. Week 12. Micah climbed into Jite's lap without asking, showed him a book about dinosaurs. This one's a T-Rex. He's the biggest. I see that. Do you like dinosaurs? I do now. Micah grinned, turned the page. Jite's chest ached, but in a different way. Not with loss, with something new. Something he didn't have a name for yet. Week 16. Jite arrived at 9:48 a.m. Danielle opened the door. Her expression was tight. What's wrong? Jite asked. Nothing. Come in. But something was wrong. He could see it in the way she kept glancing at the window, the way her shoulders were tense. Danielle? Not now. Jite didn't push, played with Micah, left at 11. But when he got to his car, he called Sung Ho. I need you to check something. Danielle's apartment, West Broad Street. See if anyone's been watching it. Sung Ho called back 2 hours later. You were right. Surveillance. 2 men. Rotated shifts for the past week. Jite's blood went cold. Who? Cho Min Sok's people. Cho. The name hit like a punch. How did he find out? I don't know, but he knows about the boy, and he knows the boy is yours. Jite's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Pull our people, quiet protection. No one approaches Danielle's building without clearance. Already done. Jite hung up, stared at the road ahead. Cho Min Sok had found his weakness, and in their world, weakness was leverage. Jitae's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice family you've got there. Would be a shame if something happened to them. Jitae's jaw clenched. This wasn't over. It was just beginning.
Jitae didn't call Danielle. Not yet. First, he needed to handle Cho Min Sok, but not the old way, not with violence or retaliation or public displays of power. That would only put Danielle and Micah in more danger. So he did something he'd never done before. He went legal. Jitae spent 3 days with his attorneys, corporate lawyers, not the ones who handled his underground operations, the clean ones. I want a full audit of Cho Min Sok's business holdings, Jitae said. Every company, every partnership, every shell corporation. His lead attorney, Warren Hutchins, raised an eyebrow. That's going to take time. You have 48 hours. Warren didn't argue. 2 days later, Jitae sat in his Memphis office, files spread across his desk. Cho Min Sok owned 6 legitimate businesses, restaurants, import companies, real estate. But the paperwork was sloppy. Tax discrepancies, unreported income, partnership agreements that violated federal regulations. Nothing violent, nothing flashy, just enough to bury him legally. Jitae picked up his phone, called a contact at the IRS. I have information about tax fraud, multiple entities. I'm willing to provide documentation. The conversation lasted 12 minutes. By the end of the week, federal agents raided 3 of Cho's businesses, seized records, froze accounts. No guns, no threats, no bodies, just paperwork. Cho's empire started crumbling from the inside. Meanwhile, Jitae restructured his own operations. He sold off 2 of his riskier ventures, the ones that operated in gray areas, the ones that could be used as leverage. He moved everything into legitimate channels, paid more taxes, filed proper documentation, became boring, untouchable in a different way. It cost him millions, but it protected Danielle and Micah, and that mattered more. Sung Ho walked into his office 3 weeks later. Cho's done. His people are scattered. He's facing federal charges. He won't bother you again. Jitae nodded. Good. You could have handled this faster. Not without collateral damage. Sung Ho studied him. You've changed. Had to. That Saturday, Jitae arrived at Danielle's apartment at 9:50 a.m. She opened the door, looked at him carefully. The men watching the building, they're gone. Jitae nodded. They won't be back. How do you know? Because the person who sent them no longer has the resources to threaten anyone. Danielle's jaw tightened. What did you do? Nothing violent, just restructured some things. She searched his face, looking for lies, for manipulation, but all she saw was exhaustion. Come in. Micah was building a fort out of couch cushions. He looked up when Jitae walked in. Jitae, help me with the roof. Jitae smiled, knelt down, held the cushion while Micah adjusted the blanket. They worked in silence for a few minutes. Then Micah asked, Do you have a family? Jitae paused. What do you mean? Like a mom and dad and brothers and sisters? I have parents and cousins, but no brothers or sisters. Oh. Micah placed another cushion, concentrated hard. Then, without looking up, he said, My friend at school has a daddy who lives with him. Why don't you live with us? The question hit Jitae like a truck. He glanced at Danielle. She'd frozen in the kitchen, coffee mug halfway to her lips. Jitae's voice caught. I don't live here because your mom and I were not together. Why not? It's complicated. That's what Mama always says. Micah adjusted the fort. Didn't seem bothered by the answer. But Jitae was bothered. Because that question, that simple, innocent question, changed everything. Why don't we live together? He looked at Danielle. She was staring at him, eyes wide, vulnerable, like she'd been asking herself the same question, and didn't know the answer either. Micah, Danielle said softly,
Why don't you show Jite your new book? Micah ran to his room, excited. Jite walked over, stood close enough that Jite could smell her perfume. He's getting attached, she said quietly. Is that bad? I don't know yet. Danielle? Don't. Don't say anything you're not ready to follow through on. Jite nodded, but the question lingered. Why don't we live together? Because the truth was, Jite didn't have a good answer anymore. That night, Danielle couldn't sleep. Micah's question played on repeat in her head. Why don't we live together? She'd spent 3 years building walls, protecting herself, protecting her son. But walls didn't just keep people out. They kept her trapped too. She thought about Jitai, about the man who'd shown up every Saturday for 6 months, who arrived early, left on time, never pushed, never demanded, who'd dismantled a threat without violence, who'd changed his entire business to protect them. The old Jitai would have handled Showmin Suk with force, with power, with control. But this Jitai? He'd chosen a different path, and that mattered. 2 weeks later, Danielle called him. Not Sung-ho, him. Can you come over tonight after Mike is asleep? Jitai arrived at 8:30 p.m. Danielle let him in. The apartment was quiet, dim light from the kitchen, the faint hum of the refrigerator. They sat on the couch, not touching, but closer than before. I've been thinking, Danielle said. Jitai waited. About what Micah asked, about why we don't live together. And I don't have a good answer. Jitai looked at her, really looked. What are you saying? Danielle took a breath. I'm saying you've shown up for 6 months. You didn't give up, didn't manipulate, didn't try to buy your way back in. I couldn't buy what I didn't deserve. No, you couldn't, she paused. But you earned it. Jitai's throat tightened. Earned what? A second chance. Silence. Heavy. Thick. I'm not saying I trust you completely, Danielle continued. I'm not saying everything's fixed, but I see the effort. I see the change. I'm still changing, Jitai said quietly. Every day. I know. She reached over, took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, gentle, careful. I don't want to rush this. I don't want to pretend the past didn't happen. But I also don't want to punish you forever for mistakes you've already paid for. What do you want? I want to try. Slowly, carefully. For Micah, and maybe for us. Jitai's eyes burned, but he didn't look away. I won't let you down again. You better not. She smiled, small, fragile, but real. And for the first time in years, Jitai felt hope. Not the reckless kind, not the kind built on control or fear or power. The kind built on patience, on consistency, on becoming worthy of what he'd lost. 3 months later, Jitai moved to Columbus. Not into Danielle's apartment, that was too fast, but close, 10 minutes away. He restructured his entire business, hired people to manage Memphis operations, and stepped back from the parts of his empire that required his physical presence. He wanted to be here, with them. Micah started calling him Dad without prompting. It happened on a Tuesday, during breakfast. Dad, can you pass the juice? Jite froze, looked at Danielle. She smiled, nodded. He passed the juice, hands shaking. Here you go, buddy. Micah took it, didn't notice the weight of what he'd just said. But Jite noticed. And he'd carry that moment for the rest of his life. A year later, they stood in the same park where Jite had first seen Micah. Schiller Park. Autumn again. Leaves crunching underfoot. But this time, they were together. All 3 of them. Micah ran ahead, chasing a squirrel, laughing. Danielle slipped her hand into Jite's. You did it, she said quietly. Did what? Became the man I thought you were, the one I saw in Memphis before everything fell apart. Jite looked at her. I'm still trying. I know. That's why it works.
They walked in comfortable silence, watching Micah play. No grand gestures, no dramatic declarations. Just presence, just commitment, just love that had been tested and rebuilt from the ground up. Some men lose fatherhood by accident, others lose it by pride. Only one of those can be repaired. Han Ji-tae had lost it by pride, but he'd earned it back through humility. And that made all the difference. Because redemption isn't about winning someone back. It's about becoming worthy of the role you once rejected. And Ji-tae? He was finally worthy. Not perfect, not without scars, but present, accountable, real. And that was enough. Micah ran back, grabbed Ji-tae's other hand. Can we get ice cream? Ji-tae looked at Danielle. She nodded. Yeah, buddy, we can get ice cream. They walked together toward the park exit. A family. Imperfect, hard-won, real. And for the first time in his life, Ji-tae understood what he'd been searching for all along. Not power, not control, just this. Just them. Just home.
Thank you for joining K Stories by Emma for this incredible journey. If you loved this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Until next time, believe in love, fight for what matters, and never give up on redemption. This is Emma, signing off.